All right, one last look at your traffic and weather from the Wetzel's Automotive Traffic Center here on your Thursday morning. A couple accidents to report, one at Atlas Road near Garner's Ferry, Forest Drive and I-77, I-20 eastbound at Broad River Road, Longs Pond Road at I-20, Two Notch and Taylor, and then Watling at Old Barnwell. Today, another chance for some strong afternoon thunderstorms with a high of 90. Temperature is 93 tomorrow, and then 94 on Friday. 94 on Saturday. It's traffic and weather here on the early game. Oh, 9 o'clock on your Thursday morning. Welcome in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Belcher along with you here on the game. Jack, that is the brightest I've ever seen the studio. They turned on every single light this morning.
As soon as I walked in, I had to just close my eyes again just because of how insanely bright it is in here. Not that it's a bad thing, but my God, it is bright in here, and I could feel it burning on me right now.
Well, typically, like when I come in and do the morning show, which I'll do tomorrow morning with Preston, like about half the lights are on. Because again, when you're early in the morning, it's still kind of sleepy. You're almost kind of like slowly waking up.
Oh, yeah.
And then I feel like nobody really touches the lights for the rest of the day until like Jay comes in. Because Jay likes to have them all on for whatever reason. But I guess maybe he left them on and they didn't change it.
Yeah.
Because, this is brighter than we're used to.
For a sec, I thought these were new just because I've never had these on before. And I mean, you could tell. I mean, it's so bright in here. But you know what? It's probably better, so that way you guys can, if you're watching live, you can see my beautiful face.
See every detail of your face.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Do we have faces for radio?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, you got your hat on, you got your earphones on. You're like 50% covered up at that point.
I need to shave. You ever like tell yourself like, all right, I'm going to shave, and then it just doesn't happen?
That was me earlier this week before I finally decided I got out of the shower. I'm going to shave. We're going to do it.
I definitely got to clean up before media days next week. You gotta look good for Radio Row.
Yeah, you don't want to be all grizzled up and stuff some people are going to be over there looking like cavemen, I'm sure.
Yeah, so I got to dress to impress for media days next week. Today's takeover on the SEC Network, by the way, is Tennessee Day, as we're seeing. It looks like we're going to see Tennessee softball in a game against Florida from earlier on this year. I do have to wonder, though, and I imagine there's going to be some football games on there. They obviously beat Alabama this past year, which was a huge win, and got themselves back into the college football playoff. If you're a Tennessee fan watching today, do you want to watch those games knowing that, like, the fallout with Nico that would come a couple months later and, like, knowing this year you're probably not going to be positioned to be as good?
I mean, probably not. And last season ended in such disappointment. I would say I don't know how Tennessee fans feel about how last season went. I really don't know a ton of them. But, I mean, they win 10 games, and then they go get smacked in Columbus in the first round of the college football playoff. I mean, I don't know. And then you had the fallout with Nico. So, yeah, it's like just a lot of things kind of went wrong at the end of the year. And it's like it would give you PTSD. Although the win over Alabama.
That was big.
That was a huge win for them.
They beat them the past 2 times in Neyland.
Yeah.
After not beating them for like 15 years.
Because they had never beaten Saban before, right? So it's crazy. So, I mean, we'll see what happens this year. But that was a big win. So I can understand people watching for that. But
by the way, the one thing about that game against Ohio State, do you remember the Tennessee players coming out and warming up like with no shirt on?
Oh, yeah.
To try and like, hey, look at us, we're tough.
Yeah, we're so cool.
I think I remember maybe one of the Ohio State players talking about it, that like they came out like that long enough for the cameras to see, and then they all immediately like covered back up.
Oh, yeah.
And like I think Ohio State players were like laughing at them, and rightfully so.
Yeah, and then they go get walloped. I mean, what, they lose like 42-10 in that game? I mean, it was or 42 to like 20.
Something like that. Like Ohio State got out to a multi-touchdown lead pretty quickly, and we all saw like, Tennessee's cooked here.
Man, that first round of the playoff needs to. We got to get better games for next year.
The only things I remember from that first round was Kevin Jennings throwing a ton of interceptions for SMU.
Mm-hmm. Didn't he have like 2 pick sixes in that game?
Yeah, I think he did, because it was just like one after the other after the other.
Ugh.
Clemson kind of made it close with Texas for like a minute.
Yeah, that game was not as close as the score indicated.
That was the best of the 4.
Probably.
But that's not saying a whole lot.
No.
Did Notre Dame have like was it a long kickoff return touchdown or like a long return touchdown?
I think it was just a long run.
Long run, maybe.
By I think it was by
Love.
Yeah, it was by Jeremiah Love. It was so early in the game. I think it was the first score of the game, and that one was kind of close for a little bit, but then Indiana just could not keep up with Notre Dame. So the first round, I mean, don't get me wrong, all good matchups. It's such a cool concept that I hope the college football playoff never strays away from. We need more home games.
Yeah.
But, yeah, that first round was not very good.
Well, maybe we can hope the year number 2 of the 12-team playoff can get us something a little more entertaining. Speaking of running backs, by the way, talking about Jeremiah Love, we didn't get any news yesterday when it came to Rasul Faison. We'll dive into that coming up next. It is time for your 9 a.m. Sandstorm Pick Me Up, brought to you by South Carolina's largest injury law firm, George Sink Injury Lawyers. If you've been hurt in the car or at work, call George Sink now at 803-ALL-9s. Well, we were anxiously waiting yesterday. I was refreshing Twitter. I was refreshing Gamecock Central constantly throughout the day until we learned, hey, there's not going to be any ruling from the NCAA on Faison's eligibility case. So here we are once again on July the 10th, 7 months into this, and we still don't know if South Carolina has what's expected to be its feature running back.
Surprise, surprise. I mean, it's just, this is so freaking silly. It's like, come on. Either he's eligible or he's not.
I just want to know.
Like,
just tell us something.
Like, what the heck is taking so long? I just don't get it. It's just like, it's not even just South Carolina that it would be frustrating for. It's frustrating just as a college football fan, because this is setting a really bad standard that why is this taking so long? You would never see anything like this for your big programs like Texas and Alabama and Ohio State. Like, we would have an answer months ago. Why is this taking so long for an SEC program? Like, come on. It shouldn't matter who it is, honestly, because I think you see South Carolina fans complain that there's bias against South Carolina, and they're coming up with all these conspiracies and stuff, which I don't blame them for, because it's ridiculous, but something needs to be done here. It's just insane.
I have a theory, and I think it was Kevin Miller that wrote a couple weeks ago about Faison's contingency plans should he not be deemed eligible, which would include if the NFL does have the supplemental draft this year, entering his name into that, or just finding his way into a camp, because based on what he's done at Utah State, he would have the opportunity to join somebody as an undrafted free agent, be a camp body, and try and make an NFL roster. But that cutoff is coming very soon, because guess what? Camp starts here in a couple weeks for NFL teams. I think the NCAA is continuing to kick this can down the road where the problem essentially resolves itself. Because if you're Rasul Faison, you honestly don't want to get into August still not knowing. You're going to have to jump at the opportunity to try and get to the NFL by basically making the decision yourself, saying, okay, I don't know anything at this point in time. I'm going to withdraw my name from South Carolina. I'm going to try and get on a roster somewhere in an NFL camp and try and go from there. So essentially, if the NCAA waits a couple more weeks, to them, the problem will resolve itself.
And that's disgusting, honestly. It's so ridiculous.
It's so NCAA, right?
It's the most NCAA thing you could possibly imagine. And I just don't, again, I really don't get it. Like, what goes on behind the scenes there? Your guess is as good as mine. I just don't know how this could possibly take 7 months. I mean, it's just, I'd never seen that. Was Zakai Ziegler, the Tennessee guard, who definitely did not have a fifth year of eligibility because he played all 4 years with the Vols, but he decided to, go ahead and fight for a fifth year,
'Cause
try to get it.
Everybody was getting it, so why not?
Exactly. And he didn't get it. The NCAA said no. And that took maybe like a month, maybe like 2 months. I mean, so the fact that this is taking so long, and it is very reminiscent of the UNC Tez Walker situation from 2 years ago. The only difference is, and I think this is why we're going to just see, you mentioned that deadline with the NFL and stuff to was it to just join a camp?
Yeah, to essentially become a camp invite and try and make a roster of that, because again, there would be NFL teams that would bring him in.
For sure.
1,000-yard back at Utah State last year, that's pretty solid, and he'd get an opportunity, but he has to make that decision soon because camp's starting soon.
Yeah, and the difference with Tez was that he was, ready to play week 1 with UNC, so he was sticking with the program, and he does it. I think it was like the day before the game. He gets, declared ineligible or whatever. And
at that time, and then he got eligible mid-October.
Yeah, which is I don't know if we'd see that with Faison, because I think he's just going to go try his shot at the pros.
Sure.
And that's unfortunate, because he honestly, his draft stock, I don't know, his stock, I don't even know if it would be high. I mean, I guess you just take a chance on him.
I think part of the appeal to coming to South Carolina was hey, you have an opportunity to prove yourself in a power league where, okay, maybe, I don't know, maybe it could have been like a 6th, 7th round pick or just an undrafted free agent next year's draft. Regardless, then maybe, hey, you can work yourself being a mid-round pick if you have a good enough season. There was opportunity for him to improve his pro potential should he be able to play this upcoming season. But again, it seems like that's going out the window, and he's just going to have to say, again, here, literally in a matter of days, say, okay, I'm just going to have to, bite the bullet, jump to the NFL, and try and make it in a camp somewhere.
So I guess this kind of poses the question, what happens now if there's a world where Rasul Faison is not your running back this year? And I think we have to discuss that option. What is South Carolina's running back room? You're going to have Oscar Attaway. You'll have Isaiah Gustave. You'll have Matthew Fuller, Jawarn Howell, and then Bradley Dunn as your 5 scholarship running backs.
Do you expect Bradley Dunn to factor in?
No. But when I'm talking about scholarship running backs, you got to include him, right?
Sure.
So the 4 guys, though, the first 4, Fuller, Howell, Augustave, and Attaway, that's a pretty nice backup plan, I would say.
Yeah, it's okay.
But it's your running back, it's no better than what you had in, I'll say it's a little bit better than what you had in 2023.
Nobody looks at that room as an opponent and says, oh, man, Carolina's bringing those 4 running backs in here. We're worried. Could that change as the season goes along? Sure. But it's not one that really jumps off the page at you. And again, all these guys have played their respective roles fine. Augustave's obviously coming in as a new guy. But you looked at Faison as a undoubtable feature back. You're maybe not.
Carry-on Joyner.
Carry-on Joyner tried his hardest.
Carry-on Joyner.
That just didn't work.
I liked him as running back. He scored a touchdown his first game against North Carolina. But it's not, you're going to have a true running back there.
Yes, and look, let's be honest here. Carry-on Joyner and Mario Anderson did not have a great offensive line in front of them.
But he was good.
Yeah, which and Mario Anderson did fine and ended up having a pretty decent year last year at Memphis as well. But I've always said it doesn't matter if it's George Rogers, Marshawn Lattimore, Herschel Walker, or whoever. If you don't have a good offensive line, you can only be so successful as a running back. And I do think that set both those guys back a degree in 2023. Again, we'll see what the offensive line is this upcoming year. And that's actually what I want to lead into next. Now that we are kind of assuming Faison's not going to be eligible, where does the running back room rank on your list of concern level when it comes to position groups for South Carolina? We'll hit that coming up next as the Extra Point rolls along. Tyler and Jack with you on your Thursday on the Game. Welcome back in. Extra Point. Tyrad Jack Beltry with you on your Thursday here on The Game. Obviously, we are kind of preparing ourselves for a running back room without Rasul Faison. Again, we don't know what the answer is from the NCAA, but it's kind of one of those things that, like, when you ask your parents for something and they don't give you an answer right away, and the longer it takes for them to tell you, you kind of start, like, saying, okay, well, it's probably going to be a no. So you just kind of, like, mentally prepare yourself for that.
It's almost like one of those things where it literally, like you said, they just forget. They forget and they forget. They forget. It's like you have to constantly remind them.
Yeah, and by the third or fourth time, you're like, all right, this ain't happening.
Yeah, so, I mean, honestly, though, I think you really do now have to just prepare for a world where Rasul Faison's not going to be suiting up as a running back for South Carolina, and that's unfortunate if that's going to be the case. And, again, we don't know for sure if that will be the case, but, I mean, at this point, what hope do you have that he'll even suit up? I mean, it just doesn't feel like it's going to be the case.
I will be pleasantly shocked if the NCAA is like, yeah, he's good, especially with how drawn out this has gotten. So assuming he's not going to be on the team this year, when you look at the running back room, again, when you have Oscar Attaway, Isaiah Auguste coming over from Colorado, Matthew Fuller, and Jawarn Howell as your feature backs. Again, Bradley Dunn may get a carry here or there, but I'm not expecting him to do a whole lot of heavy lifting this upcoming year as long as everybody's able to stay healthy. On the list of concerns, like if we go, I numbered this here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Hold on. It's 8. Okay, so if we go position group by position group, like 1 through 8, where does running back fall on your list of concerns? 9, actually. 9 different position groups. Where does running back fall in, like, most concerning to least concerning as far as this team goes this year?
Well, I'll say this. I think it's the most concerning position on offense, but you also have to factor in, as a whole, there's a gaping hole at a lot of positions on defense.
Yep.
And that's probably more concerning than anything, because look, the thing with the running back room is Auguste, he had significant carries at Colorado. Was he amazing? No. I mean, he had like 300-something yards. That's fine. That's more like your number 2 option. Attaway has been a number 1 running back for multiple years at North Texas.
He never had the most carries at North Texas.
Yeah, that's true. But he had a lot of yards.
Yeah, a lot of yards.
So I think he's more than capable of being that guy. We saw what he did in the Citrus Bowl this past year.
Yeah,
and
he's capable.
Yeah, he's capable of being your number 1 back. But again, it's not like how Rocket Sanders came in and, yeah, despite injuries, as long as he stays healthy, he's your lead running back. And he had almost 1,000 yards. So that's kind of the ceiling of the production that you're looking for. Someone that's almost 1,000-yard rusher. You had that. Now you don't. So in terms of, like, to answer the question of how concerned I am, I'm not going to put it above the defensive concerns that I have.
Okay.
But I'm going to say it's probably about that happy medium of it's more concerning than any position on offense, and it's less concerning than probably some positions on defense, just because you have guys that I think are capable. And that's not even factoring the fact of what about Fuller? What about Howell? What if they explode like we hope they can?
I put it, again, I just kind of went with 9 different groups here, and special teams is included in this, by the way. I got it at 5. So the areas of concern I have above it, offensive line is number 1 for me.
That's definitely concerning a little bit.
For one, we don't know what the starting 5 is, and 2, the past couple of years, it's not been great. Again, I think Lenore Sellers made it look better than it actually was the back half of last year. Now, again, we can expect, hopefully, Josiah Thompson to take a big step forward, and you're number 2, and we'll see what this mix of transfers and stuff can do potentially to be those other guys around him. That's number 1 for me. Special teams also, that's number 2. Like, again, you're replacing everything, including Hunter Rogers, your long snapper. So I have no clue what to expect out of special teams this upcoming year. So that is definitely a heightened concern. Linebacker as well. All 3 of your guys are gone. That were the middle of your defense last year, and that was how many snaps of college football?
Oh, a ton.
Debo,
you had 2 sixth-year guys.
Yeah, Debo, Demetrius Knight, and Bay Martin Scott just had a ton of experience that you just, quite frankly, don't have this year. Now, yeah, we think there's a high upside for a guy like J.R. Johnson, Sean Murphy, and Okoronkwo, highly touted coming out of high school.
It's a pretty good group.
But we just don't know enough about them to say, yeah, they can definitely go out there and replicate the success of what those prior 3 guys had.
If they can replicate it, though, I mean, I trust Clayton White to do a great job with this defense. And you have Torian Gray, you have Sterling Lucas, Travian Robertson. That's a heck of a coaching staff for the defense. So
that's where you have to put the trust in.
Exactly. And again, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, it kind of reminds me a little bit of, again, there's a lot of similarities here to 2023. And I almost get the feeling that I really don't hope this is a 2023 type of season. But, the defense really struggled that year. But by November, I mean, they were great. So that last month of the year, they were great. Considering the fact of just where that defense was then and how they progressed throughout the year, and they got a lot better in that final month, and then we see what happens this year, or this past year, I think there's a lot of optimism that doesn't matter who's on the field. As long as these coaches are all still together, and they're going to be for a few more years here, it seems like, I really trust what Clayton White will be able to do with this defense, regardless of the personnel out in the field.
The only other one I have above running back is defensive tackle. Because, again, like linebacker, you had so much experience in the front of your defense last year. That's hard to replicate. And, again, Nick Barrett's coming back. He redshirted last year, and, he's been around the program for a while and has played his part fine up to this point. We have high potential out of a guy like Goodwine, high potential out of a guy like Gabriel Brownlow-Dinley. But, again, we just have not seen enough of these guys at the college level to truly know what they're capable of. And until I see that, I'm going to be concerned.
Yeah. It is very concerning, but I think, honestly, again, you have running backs that can go out there and do it, and there's a lot of potential there. Again, if those two young guys step up the way that we hope they can, it's going to probably be – it won't be as noticeable of a loss, I don't think. And it's no guarantee that Faison would be a 1,000-yard rusher here at South Carolina, but you got to imagine he would have been your best running back by far.
Yeah.
So losing him is a big hit, though, potentially.
So, and again, it's fifth on the list for me out of the roughly 9 different position groups. Where's that going to fall for you in terms of, like, level of concern?
With running back?
With running back.
So, again, I'm with you. I say middle of the pack, like 4 or 5, I would say, on that list of 9 positions. It's just, it's not the biggest concern, I would say, because, again, you have capable bodies. It's just... you have bigger concerns, I think, and one that really is a big concern, I would say, with you, or with what you said before, special teams. I mean, what are you doing there? Because it's kind of similar to the whole running back situation in a way. I mean, you just don't have a true kicker, it seems like. I think you're going probably with Mason Love pulling double duty.
By the way, for the rest of my list, at 6, I have wide receiver. Again, we got a good group of guys, and we hope some guys elevate to a different level, but I feel pretty good about it. Defensive back, one area of defense that I think we feel pretty secure, Jalen Kilgore, DQ Smith, those guys coming back. Obviously, you have Brandon Cisse coming in, and a lot of capable bodies in the back in that defense that should be fine. Edge is my next to last one. Again, Dylan Stewart speaks for himself. I feel like Brian Thomas Jr. may not be able to replicate what Kyle Kennard did a season ago, but he's solid, and I think will play a decent complement to what Dylan Stewart's doing. And then lastly, of course, quarterback. I think we're good there.
I think things are going to be fine.
By the way, tight end factors in with wide receiver too. Those are
that feels fair. And honestly, I think tight end, you're losing a lot of production out of Josh Simon, but they got guys there that are going to do
Brady
it.
Hunt, Michael Smith, that should be fine.
That's a pretty
Dingle
good
coming in, that
we'll
should
see.
be okay.
Yeah, we'll see if Dingle's healthy too, but. Yeah, I think they're going to be fine there.
So that's kind of a rundown of our levels of concerning and running back kind of middle of the pack. Now that you know or are assuming that Rasul Faison is not going to be eligible, and hey, maybe we'll be surprised here in the next couple of days. But I'm not this, and have some results tell you how successful I think Scott Frost and Rich Rodriguez will be in their second stops at their respective schools. That's coming up next. It is the Extra Point, Tyler Head and Jack Feltry, along with you on your Thursday here on The Game.
When it comes to HVAC replacements, AAA Heating and Air is the go-to name in the Midlands. With guaranteed financing, no payments or interest for 12 months, and a 15-year parts and labor warranty, it's no wonder they're the best in the business. But wait, there's more. Did you know AAA Heating and Air also offers incredible deals for repairs? If your system is broken and you're worried about the cost, they've got you covered. AAA Heating and Air offers up to 12-month payment plans with no credit check for all repairs. So don't sweat it. Call AAA Heating and Air today to take advantage of these amazing deals.
Welcome back in. Extra Point, Tyler Head and Jack Belcher with you on your Thursday here on the game. Next week, SEC Media Days out in Atlanta. We'll be out there all week long, broadcasting live from Radio Row, as July is the month for all conferences to have their media days. This week, Big 12 kicking things off with their media days out in Dallas past 2 days. A couple new coaches, or old coaches returning to their former schools, I should say, with Scott Frost and Rich Rodriguez returning to Central Florida and West Virginia, respectively. Rich Rodriguez, of course, the innovator of that spread, up-tempo, high-octane offense back in the mid-2000s, saw so much success with guys like Pat White and Geno Smith. Talked yesterday about, hey, I'm coming back, and I'm still running that same offense from 20 years ago.
It was more fun 20 years ago when not as many people were using tempo or spread formations because they didn't, you were unique. Now it's not as unique, but at the same time, I think you got to be who you are, and also be able to adapt. Like, we're running a lot of the same stuff that we ran 20 years ago, but we're doing some of that stuff better, and we're doing some other stuff that other people have done better than us and copied them. So, I enjoy that part of it. I still think getting players to play really, really hard and harder than they ever thought they could play is part of coaching as well that we take pride in. But the scheme part of it, I don't go in every game saying, well, we're going to out-scheme these guys and we're going to be the smartest guys on there. And, it's not what you call, it's what you can execute. So I've probably become simpler as opposed to more exotic, if that's the word, from a scheme standpoint.
So, again, when he was doing this in the mid-2000s at West Virginia, it was innovative. Nobody was really doing it, and it helped them win a lot of games. They played in a couple Sugar Bowls. They nearly went to the national championship back in 2007 if they had not lost to Pitt in the backyard brawl. So he was really at the top of college football at that point in time. But, again, everybody kind of catches up as time goes along, and now everybody's doing that kind of offense. Are you a fan of rehires, by the way? Do you think hiring the same coach twice works out?
I think it depends on how the end of the first initial run goes, right? Like, is there a bad breakup? Is it just a mutual thing? Because, it can work, but, like, I don't know. You got to bring them back, I think, on the right terms, and we're seeing that at UCF. We're seeing that with Rich Rod. I mean, I think it's something that, and again, I don't know if it really does work, but it can, I think, in the rare few cases where if you have a really good coach that has a proven track record, it can work. I just don't see it here with a few of these guys.
And both these programs have had moderate success since these coaches have left. Daniel Holgorsen had some good years when he was at West Virginia. Josh Heupel had a couple decent seasons after Scott Frost left and went to Nebraska. But these two respective coaches took those programs, at least in recent years, to the highest heights they've seen, right? And the UCF program's only been around since the mid-'90s. It's as old as I am, coming around in 1996. So they've only had a short time of being around and only a little bit of success to speak for, and that mythical national championship that they claimed in 2017. But I was curious, how do rehires work, especially in recent memory? So since the year 2000, there have been 9 different coaches that at the FBS level, I don't count coaches that coached at an FCS school and then came back when they were FBS. That's happened a few times. But coaches that have come back to their respective schools a second time, how successful they have been. Here's the list, by the way. Gary Anderson at Utah State, Chris Auld at Nevada, Mack Brown at UNC, which we just saw the end of, Randy Edsall at UConn, Brady Hoke at San Diego State, Bobby Petrino at Louisville, Mike Riley at Oregon State, Greg Schiano at Rutgers, who's still there, by the way, and then Jeff Tedford at Fresno State. Out of all those guys coming back for a second time around, 6 out of those 9 had a worst winning percentage the second time around, and 6 of the 9 never posted a better record than they had in their prior stop. And there's a little caveat to that because both Mike Riley and Brady Hoke only had 2 seasons at their first stints at their respective schools. So I feel like that was maybe not the best litmus test of how good they were actually going to be, and then came back and had better success the second time around. So typically, the numbers suggest it doesn't usually work.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And the one I think of probably the most recent with Mack Brown at UNC, I mean, that just did not work at all. I mean, for like maybe a little bit it did.
Yeah.
Like at first. But then as NIL develops and stuff, and that becomes a bigger thing, and we're just talking about a different era of college football compared to what he had when he was at UNC the first time, and then how successful he was, obviously, at Texas.
The Mack Brown thing was interesting because Larry Fedora had drug that program way down. They were at the very bottom of the ACC, and I think Mack Brown was brought in to try and get a foundation under it, right? And I thought, okay, he'll be here for 2-3 seasons, get them back to at least winning a decent amount of games, and then he'll hand the reins over to somebody else. But it seemed like he was kind of digging in and trying to stay for the long term. We obviously saw the fallout and how things went last year that was a disaster, and to the point where, when they're getting shellacked by James Madison by 50 points at halftime, he's like, you guys just want me to retire now? Should I just leave? It was a bad situation out there at UNC, and now we'll see what Bill Belichick obviously does. But, I don't know what the expectations were when they hired him back. But again, in the end, it ended up becoming a mess.
Yeah, and we'll see what happens at UNC. But I think the point being, there's a lot of proof in the pudding that these rehires don't always work. And I don't know if it's going to work for Scott Frost now in this is his second or third year at UCF in his return. I mean,
third overall season,
Yeah.
second stint starting back now.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, he had 2 prior seasons, had that great 13-0 year, and then then he left and went to Nebraska after that.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens, but
again, I think we all kind of look at this when these kind of hires are made, knowing it's not going to be as successful. But if you're a fan of the Golden Knights, if you're a fan of the Mountaineers, you're probably thinking like, hey, here comes the guy. He's back. He's gonna lead us back to those heights again. And I just don't think that's the case. Now, I do think, as we talked about yesterday, the Big 12 is as wide open as ever. You have the best chance in that conference, I feel like, to come in and make something happen. But as far as sustained success, I just don't see it, unfortunately.
now, and I misspoke, by the way. This is Scott Frost's first season in his return.
Yes, at UCF.
Yes.
It'll be his third overall season.
Yes. So there's that. So we'll see what happens there. I mean, again, it's a different era because and the other thing is conference realignment and stuff.
Sure.
Completely different. I mean,
yes. Well, and UCF was in the American when Scott Frost was there the first time.
And West Virginia was in the
Big East.
Big East.
Yes.
So
The RIP, the original Big East, by the way.
yeah. So they're both in the Big 12. So it's going to be completely different, I think. And I think if there's one coach I think that would probably have a decent run, would probably be in the rehire would probably be Rich Rod.
Sure.
I think it can work at West Virginia.
I think you have more resources available for you at West Virginia.
That's the other thing, resources.
And I think we mentioned this yesterday. Gus Malzahn was a good coach in the SEC that just couldn't make it work in UCF. So I'm like, I don't know, maybe the fact that you had success there before, lends people to want to help you out more. But I don't think Scott Frost is going to have what he needs to be successful down there, unfortunately.
Probably not, but again, time will tell. But the odds are probably stacked against him when you look at rehires and stuff, and it just doesn't really work out most of the time.
Yeah, but we'll see. That'll be a storyline to watch in the Big 12. As again, that conference does seem like it's very, very wide open. Next week, the Major League Baseball All-Star Game also comes to Atlanta, just like SEC Media Days. And there's going to be an interesting twist this year. The Robo-Umps are going to be a part of the game. We'll dive into that coming up next and what that means for baseball going forward as well. It is The Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Beltry with you on your Thursday on The Game. Welcome back in. Next point. Tyrant and Jack Veltri with you on your Thursday here on The Game. I always get excited about the Major League Baseball All-Star Game more than I do pretty much any other All-Star game in professional sports, because I think we talked about it earlier on this week. The MLB All-Star Game is the closest to the actual usual product that you get on a day-in, day-out basis, as opposed to like the Pro Bowl or the NBA All-Star Game, which are just travesties to what the actual sport they're playing is.
Yeah, that is true. It's one of those things with baseball where it's not like you can't try. You can't give less effort. It's not.
Sure.
It's not. I mean, you can maybe throw 80 miles an hour compared to 95, but you're not going to do that, you know. So, and at the plate for hitters, it's not like you could just like whiff, I guess, if you want, but you're not doing that. So, point is, it's one of those things where you have to try, and it leads to actually feeling like a legit game, even though it's pretty much just an exhibition.
Yeah, and it's neat to obviously see the stars of the game get all together and play against each other, and you'll get some unique matchups on the mound and at the plate. And, I think they've done a really good job in the past couple of years, like incorporating, the mic'd up stuff and have players out in the field. And everybody has fun with it. It's a fun thing to watch. You got the home run derby the days before and all those kind of things. But the All-Star Game is also an opportunity to tinker with some things, experiment, and kind of see what you can figure out. And as you heard in the sports brief there in the commercial break, the robo-umps making their way into the All-Star Game this year. I would imagine this is going to be a full go next year for the regular season, and this is kind of like the final, because they had in the spring this year. So everybody in spring training got tested out, from most teams did, in most of the spring training leagues. And I feel like now putting it on this grand stage to kind of introduce everybody to it, because look, there's a lot of baseball fans that don't pay attention to spring training. They tune in on opening day and that's it. So they may not have much idea about the robo-ump, but now putting it on national television, the All-Star Game, this is your way of introducing it to people before making it a full go next year.
It's definitely going to be a full go next year. As long as there's no other hiccups, which I don't think there will be, because it seems to work pretty well. They use it at the minor league level. Mm-hmm. They use it in spring training, like you said. This is kind of like that final test run, I guess. And it's something that typically when the MLB does these things where they use it in the minor leagues first, like the bases being bigger, they use that in the minor leagues. Then they tested it out in spring training. And then the following year, they brought it out full time. I think it was last year that they started using the bigger bases at the MLB level. So that's something that we see happen with so many new changes over the years, and ABS is that next change that will definitely, I'd be shocked if it didn't come next year. And I think it's for the better, honestly. I think it's time to start getting calls right. It took years to get the review system and the challenges to the way it is now. I mean, that was almost a decade ago because you had so many blown calls. You see the same thing here with balls and strikes all the time.
And obviously, when you introduce something like this, they're the traditionalists. They're like, hey, we've not argued balls and strikes for 100+ years. We're not going to start now. But much like the other reviews of like bang bang calls at first base, things like that. What's a foul ball? What's not a foul ball? Those kind of things have become part of the game. You get used to it. And again, it's not eating up a ton of time. You see it maybe pop up a time or two in your average MLB game, and that's kind of the same situation here. And there's also a strategy element of it too. Like, you can't just go up there and challenge every single thing because you only get to keep it if you win. So he's saying, okay, do I want to challenge a ball that I think was out of the zone in the bottom of the first inning where there's no outs and nobody on in a tie game? Probably not. But in the ninth inning, when there's two guys on, 2 outs, and, I have the difference between a 2-1 count and a 1-2 count, absolutely I want to have a challenge. And so you put more strategy in the hands of managers, which I think is not managers, also the guy at the plate, which would be the one that would call for it. You put more strategy into the team's hands, and I think that's smart.
It's far more important to get the call right and have the challenge and take 15, 20 extra seconds than to be a simple traditionalist and want the human. And that's the other thing people argue is the human element of it. It's not like they're getting rid of umpires, right?
No, they're not.
Like, as much as we joke about robo-umps and stuff.
The union's not going to allow that to happen.
No, there are going to be umpires.
Yeah.
And honestly, if anything, this should be motivating to umpires who probably don't like it to go out there and actually do a better job out there, because a lot of them are just not very good, honestly.
And that's a part of it too. But also, this is something that essentially when if the batter is at the plate and he's the one that is challenging this, he'll tap on the helmet, and immediately on the big screen, you'll get basically the TrackMan, right, of like where the ball was in reference to the strike zone, and you'll see in about 8 to 10 seconds, was that a ball or a strike? They'll change it. They'll move on if they need to. Boom. It's not something where, all right, let's pause the game. Let's go to the review area. Let's put on the headset. It's not going to be anything like that. It's going to be bang, bang, very quick. And look, if you're in the other room getting a drink or a snack, you may even miss that it happens. You know what I mean? Like, it's going to go that quick.
Yeah.
Which I like.
It's one of those things that they'll put on the Jumbotron, you'll tap the helmet, and then they'll go from there.
Exactly.
It's not going to take long, and that's the good thing about it. It's not adding to the time, which is something MLB, they try to cut down time now.
And they've done a good job with that.
Yeah.
But like you said, look, no umpire wants to be embarrassed in front of tens of thousands of people in a full stadium by seeing that he got a call wrong on the big screen. So like you said, this is going to force them to tighten up. Like, hey, I don't want to be the guy because there's going to be records of this out there. Like, hey, X ump, is getting all these challenges going against him, and he's usually wrong most of the time. Like, you don't want to be that guy. So it's going to force these guys behind the plate to make better judgment calls when it comes to balls and strikes, so they're not getting publicly shamed in front of everyone in the arena or in the stadium and on TV.
Yeah, it's going to be an adjustment because the other thing we have to think about here, all these umpires have different strike zones. Some are hitter-friendly, some are pitcher-friendly, and so they might be a little bit wider, a little bit tighter. So I don't know. It's going to be an adjustment for sure for these guys. But again, they've already done it through spring training and stuff, and it's going to be better for the game because, again, you want to see the calls right. Like, imagine seeing your team lose a game on a bad call out of the zone, which we've seen for decades now. And it's like, man, I wish we had a challenge system like that. Like 10 years ago, I wish we had something like that when we got the reviews. But now we do finally.
If you're a batter and you have the challenge available and you get caught, if you get struck out looking in the bottom of the ninth inning, aren't you challenging every single time?
Yes.
Even if it's right down Broadway, just for the heck of it?
Yes, you might as well challenge until you can't. And I think it's going to be good for the game. It will not take long. Again, it will only at most, over the course of a game, if you have two challenges, let's say you win a few, it'll only probably add an extra minute or two to the game.
Yeah, I'm good with it. I'm excited to see how this works in the All-Star game. And heck, lean into it. Use it as much as you want. Like, I want to see this on full display with the best of baseball and see how it works.
There will be more eyeballs on this, which is going to be really good for the game, I think.
Looking forward to it. We'll see you back in here tomorrow, Jax, to wrap up the week.
All right, see you then, buddy.
Come up next, Garnet Trust Hour with Mark Benoit from the Garnet Trust. Up next here on the game. 10 o'clock Thursday morning. Welcome back in. It is the Garnet Trust Hour, brought to you by Krantz Cooling and Heating. Tyler Head and Chris Clark along with you. And Chris, we got ourselves a full house here today. Mark Benoit and Grace Area of the Garnet Trust hanging out with us. Long time no see, guys. How we doing?
Doing good. It is. It's been a while since I've been in here, so glad to be back. We've been filled with athletes for the past couple of months, so that's a good thing.
Yep, absolutely.
But obviously summer's here, and so glad to be back in.
And rebranded today.
Rebranded the Garnet Trust Hour with the Garnet Trust.
And Heating.
Yeah. We've got the Garnet Trust team minus Jeremy. He's doing a little summer vacation this week.
Well, I'm inevitably going to mess the name up at some point this hour, so forgive me ahead of time.
No problem. Don't call it we'll let it slide once.
I'll get used to it, I promise.
That's right.
Tyler has lots of shows.
I do.
There's like 12 shows.
Yeah,
I think.
so
something like that.
It's part of the process.
And there's been a little reshuffling on the 107.5 The Game here in the past couple of days, right?
Yeah, this is the only time block that hasn't really changed. But yeah, me and Bill from 12 to 3, Elijah and Preston from 6 to 9, and now Jay and Terry once again from 3 to 6.
You keeping everybody straight?
Trying to. Yeah.
That's tough.
Yeah.
Yeah, tough crowd.
It's radio, man. That's how it works.
So what's been going on? I feel like we've been getting, guys, a lot of questions from fans. We had like the first, well, not the first, but we had a big date on July 1st, with RevShare, first time ever. Schools can directly pay out college players, contract them, directly pay them out. And I think one of the first questions to maybe address off of that, because we've gotten it, I've certainly gotten it a bunch on Gamecock Central, on social media, here on the show, is, how does that change, if it does, Garnet Trust's role at all, like in the new structure of college sports?
Yes, on June 7th, I think it is whenever Judge Wilkin signed in the or approved final approval for the House settlement case, which we've talked about for well over into a year now. And so that meant on July 1st, and that was the start of the revenue sharing era in college sports. What a lot of people probably have heard is this $20.5 million that schools can distribute directly to student athletes at their discretion. And then from there, student athletes are still allowed to get NIL deals, and so that's where Garnet Trust comes into play. You are still allowed to supplement NIL deals. They have to be approved through a clearinghouse called NIL Go, which is run by Deloitte. So we are evolving a little bit as a collective, but our job is going to be to supplement the $20.5 million that the school is going to distribute, because we're aware, you've probably seen some numbers that are well above that for the cost of one sports team. And so $20.5 million amongst an entire athletics department is probably not going to be enough. And so it's going to be our job to assist the university and compensate those athletes above that $20.5 million.
As you mentioned, we've been talking about this forever before it finally came to pass. A little over a month ago, do you feel like you guys were as prepared as you needed to be when it went into effect just a couple days ago, or was there anything in that process of the month between the approval and it going live that maybe still surprised you a little bit?
I think we had prepared ourselves pretty well over these past few months. I mean, I think that we were all ready for revenue sharing on July 1st. The three of us together, obviously, went around, Jeremy and Mark especially, talked to other schools and just kind of got a feel of how everyone else is figuring it out, which is just figuring it out as you go. No one really had a clear, correct answer, but once July 1st came, it was a nice way to, put some borders up, some sort of direction, and kind of what we're doing in this new space.
Yeah, so, I mean, I think one of the things we need to address, I think you have to preface, like, everything as being for now, or right now, as of now, because I mean, we've already seen some of the things that have been put into place have been kind of called into question, like how long will this last? How will this work? And we're still trying to get answers to all that. But it seems to me, Mark, that one of the big drivers for Garnet Trust, and you've talked about it a lot when you've been on with us, is the membership program. And right now that's still in place, right? I mean, I saw something the other day that Texas has actually restructured their collective to kind of actually be more like Garnet Trust with how it's running, and that they're really leaning into that. So to me, that kind of signals like that part's here to stay, right? Is that what
Yes,
you-
and we are going to double down on membership. And as you mentioned, Texas, Ole Miss, there are many other schools in the conference that have essentially also even probably put a bigger emphasis on the membership programs within their collective. Texas is in alignment with their university. They're going to be able to do some things within the athletic department that allow it to be a little bit. I mean, Texas is an interesting case because they have, as they mentioned in the article that I think that you're referencing from On3, is that they were almost primarily tax deductible giving. I mean, that their membership program was almost just all donations instead of memberships. But they've transitioned into instead of a not-for-profit into a for-profit and LLC, which is the same setup as the Garnet Trust has, and they are going all in on their membership. And as far as that being a potential of ways to supplement the $20.5 million that the schools are going to distribute.
Well, it makes total sense because with the membership, you're getting a consistent commitment as opposed to, hey, give us something whenever you feel like it or when you have the opportunity to. Like when you have that, okay, you're going to pay $20, $100, $1,000 a month. That's something that you can count on every single time, and you guys can obviously account for knowing it's going to be there for the years and months going forward.
Right, and we're in a good spot for 2025. The great part for us is that allows from July through December for us to be able to grow that membership and get projections out for 2026, so that then whenever we're signing contracts for guys that are coming back in 2025 or new guys that are going to be arriving in December 25 that are going to be coming for 2026, that we have that revenue in place that we can kind of project out and say, okay, this is what Garnet Trust could commit over over your rev share number. Because essentially I think what's going to happen is you're going to have a piece of it that, okay, the school is willing to give you X number of dollars out of the revenue share bucket, and then Garnet Trust / whoever is going to be able to supplement with NIL type deals that they've put together for that specific player or for the team.
So there's a question, I think, off of that. And I want to be clear. I'm completely making up these numbers, right? But let's imagine that there's a prospect who's talking to a school, school whatever. It doesn't have to be South Carolina. And there's a rev share discussion, which is legal now and promise. Let's say the numbers, we're going to give you, $200K in rev share. Great. But let's say that there's another portion of that, 50 grand more, 100 grand more, whatever the number should be, that is, I guess you could say, promised through whatever package, whether it's a collective. Right now, to go back to that phrasing, right now, it looks like that those deals, sure, they can be promised, but can they be contracted? Because I saw Ross Dellinger's story on Yahoo Sports, and there was some question about whether or not schools can actually promise / contract above the cap money. And then how do you think schools and coaches are going to structure, and even agents on the other side, hey, I'm promised this amount, or we are promising this amount, but we have to be confident that we can actually push it through the clearinghouse. You know what I mean? Like, it seems like there could be potentially some
I think
problems
what you've got
there.
right now is I think you're going to, for the next 6 months, you're going to have collectives, businesses, whoever it may be, probably test the waters a little bit on what will be approved by the clearinghouse. So I think you're going to get a good idea before December, which I think is really whenever a lot of this stuff probably takes shape in a larger form, is because that's whenever your retention and your recruiting and your transfer portal stuff are happening the most. You kind of got a test period from now to December, November to figure out what that really looks like. And yes, I agree with Ross. I don't think that schools can promise outside NIL deals. That doesn't mean that Garnet Trust can't sign an outside NIL deal, right? So we're a private company. We're separate of the university. And assuming that we have a method to get that deal, whether it be through us or whether it be through one of our business partners, if we have a method to get that deal through the clearinghouse, then yes, I do think that's something you can promise.
Well, the clearinghouse, though, and I'm going to say this, y'all may or may not agree, and I'm not asking you to blast the College Sports Commission or anything, but, when we heard about the clearinghouse and the possibility, it was like, okay, there's going to be problems with that, whether it's eventually lawsuits or whatever, but one of the problems that maybe I didn't foresee is that they're just apparently taking forever to actually clear deals. You know, I mean, Pete Nakos wrote about this. There was an SEC school that had put in a deal, and Grace, this probably would have been very frustrating to you. You know, this summer, they put in a deal, and then it took so long, I think 2 weeks, that the event passed, right? And so they didn't even, I don't know if they did the event or not or what happened, but like the point is they tried to go through the proper channel, tried to say, hey, we're going to do this event for this amount, this guy or girl, and then they took so long to do it that they couldn't even do the thing.
Yeah, that's the frustration starts when now it's hurting the athlete themselves.
Yeah.
Which the whole goal, I feel like, of all of this was to support them and help them overall. And when they have these opportunities, and you know you're trying to do the correct thing and go through the clearinghouse and check all the boxes and all that, and then you know it doesn't even work. There's no timeline. You have no answers. It's frustrating.
And Grace, what exactly does that process look like when say, okay, here's the deal, here's what the process of putting that through the clearinghouse looks like, in the, again, hopeful timetable of getting to hear back from them soon? Like, how does that go from y'all's end necessarily?
Well, the student athlete puts in all the deals. It's through their own, you know, school email, their account, their login. So once they have all the information, they can put in the terms, the date of the you know, appearance, if that's what it is, any other deliverables, social media, things like that. And then, you know, once again, you do all that and put in all the correct information, it gives you a 1 to 3 days, I think it is. And then it goes beyond that and it still says in review, and you kind of just don't know.
Yeah. I mean, that's, you know, and to me, they're saying, you know, they put out a statement about this. Oh, we're sorry it's taking so long. We'll get better. Once more deals get in, you know, maybe they actually will, but I think we need, it's a couple of things, like we need more data because like you said, Mark, a lot of people are testing the waters and I don't think we have a good sense yet as to like what is their pulse on things, you know, what types of deals are being pushed through, what aren't, which deals that, I mean, Ross Dellinger reported some deals have actually been denied. They can be resubmitted once. And then if you get past that, you can go to arbitration. But we don't have a test case of like a denial, a re-denial, if that's the right word, arbitration, and then a lawsuit. Like I feel like we'll have that, but we don't yet.
Well, and that's what we don't have that timeline yet. I mean,
Yeah.
and granted, listen, I'm willing to give the College Sports Commission, Deloitte, a little grace on this. Now, I do think it's a problem whenever you submit something 17 days ago and the timeline for the event has already passed and they have not given an answer. I do think that's a problem. But I do think that there is going to be, as I've said, I think for collectives, I think for businesses as a whole, these next 3 to 4 or 5 months are really important because I think you're going to be able to test and see, okay, what really is a range of compensation for these guys and how much over the cap are we going to be able to supplement, because it's all kind of based on the data that Deloitte receives.
It is a new era of college sports with revenue sharing in full effect. We're talking to Mark Benoit and Grace Area of the Garner Trust all about it today on the Garner Trust Hour, presented by Krantz Cooling and Heating here on The Game.
All right, everyone, if you're looking for a local and reliable roofing company, check out our friends over at Classic Roofing, classicroofingsc.com, or you can give Joe Reeder, Max Sawyer, and their team a call, 803-590-7870. As you know, taking good care of your roof can be challenging, but you don't have to go at it alone. The guys at Classic Roofing have years of expertise under their hats. Local roofers, because they have families that live right here in the Midlands. Quality craftsmanship and customer service is simply unmatched by the other guys. So you can be totally confident in your decision to hire Classic Roofing for the next roofing job you need to complete. You can get a free estimate on your next project. Inspection, installation, replacement, repairs. They can do it all for your residents or for your business. Again, that's classicroofingsc.com, or give Joe, Mac, and the team at Classic Roofing a call at 803-590-7870.
Welcome back in. It is the Garnet Trust Hour, brought to you by Krantz Cooling and Heating. Tyler Head, Chris Clark, hanging out with Mark Benoit and Grace Area of the Garnet Trust here on your Thursday, talking about this new era of revenue sharing. And there at the very end of the last segment, we talked about the issues that NIL Go has had in its first couple days, with them being kind of backlogged with a lot of deals to try and process, and the information not getting out as fast as it needs to, and a lot of frustrations around the country with programs and players waiting to see if their deals are going to be approved or not. And as we kind of saw with when NIL Go was announced, there was going to be some issues with it, and I understand what they're trying to do with making sure every deal is legitimate. But one question that gets asked a lot is, okay, if you don't submit a deal through them, what happens? What's the punishment? And I don't think we quite have a clear answer on that exactly. Can you expand on that a little bit of what if you just don't go through NIL Go with one of your deals? What happens?
Your answer is as good as mine, Tyler. I don't know that we do have an answer. Yeah, I mean, listen, I think that's probably part of the reason. I think that's probably one repercussion that's going to happen from them delaying them or just not giving an answer on these deals is that you're going to have more under the table deals. I mean, you're almost encouraging that behavior. Now, I do think that the College Sports Commission has pretty much said like their punishments are going to be harsher, and I'm putting that in air quotes for all those listening. But nobody knows what that looks like yet. Nobody knows if that means that you can't play in the college football playoff. Nobody knows if that means that you're losing scholarships. I mean, we just don't know. And I think that I guess I was a little surprised because I think we all expected this to be approved in early April. You'd have some, you'd have a couple months before the July 1st deadline to get some of the stuff figured out. We're figuring it out on the fly. And for every person that says, oh, it's great that we're entering into a more stable version of college athletics, I don't see that. I mean, I think you are just as unstable right now as you have been. The money flow maybe is a little more stabilized because it's coming directly from the universities. But outside of that, then, I mean, everything else is still feels a little bit like the land of the free, right? I mean, you can kind of do what you want to do. I mean, and I think the biggest thing about NIL that just during the NIL era is that you had less brown paper bags full of cash that were dropped off because there was a legal way for people to give money to college athletes. And now you feel like you're reverting a little bit back, and I hate to say encouraging that behavior because I don't necessarily think that it's encouraging it, but you were definitely making donors wonder like why if I want to get a guy to help me out, why would I even submit it through the process?
Yeah, and I feel like we just have a lot of, I mean, there are more questions than answers on what the enforcement part of it is. I feel like I've seen some stuff from Ross Dellinger in the past that, I mean, he clearly has some, NCAA sources. He does a really good job with all that. But it's so unclear. Like, you can literally go to the College Sports Commission's website under enforcement, and you read 2 paragraphs, and you're like, yeah, I have no idea. They're like,
doesn't it say more information to come?
Yeah, more information. It's basically we'll give you more information later. Our role may expand to include additional rules. Which rules? How are you going to enforce them? So there's been a lot of talk about. I mean, I think one of the things, and I'm not saying this was specifically for, hey, you didn't report your deal through NIL Go, but some recruiting related penalties could be things like, docking your revenue share cap, or punishing, suspending coaches, whatever. But we haven't said it. And, I mean, to your point, I think that is still a reason that we have so much chaos is because we've kind of, sort of got some new rules in place, but we don't know what the penalties are. We don't know if they're going to be enforced. And then the mechanism that was put in place, just the bare bones version, submit your non-rev share deals through NIL Go. People, it seems like, have been trying to actually participate in that, and then they're not given answers to it.
Also, on that NIL Go, we were talking about people submitting deals and not hearing back on time. You said like 17 days. If it's an appearance or anything that you have to do, for your deal, if you have it all scheduled and everyone's all ready to go, and it's not cleared, but
yeah,
you've planned this whole thing, and this athlete is now promised, like, show up at this appearance, and this is what you're going to get paid to do everything you have to do, and who's to say they don't go and do it? What's the repercussions, like you were saying?
Right.
And let me go ahead and make clear, we are in a conference, we are in a portion of the country that they are not going to sit and wait for the NCAA, the College Sports Commission, the SEC, NIL Go, name whatever institution you want to name for them to get permission to figure out a way to go get better players.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so, I mean, and it's not just in this portion of the country. I think that applies in Ohio and Michigan and Pennsylvania. I think that applies in Oregon and California. And so, I mean, every school is competitive, and every school cares about what the best way that they can get an advantage. And if you think that there are schools in the SEC, they're going to sit around and say, twiddle their thumbs and say, oh, well, let's just wait until we get an answer from NIL Go on whether we can do this event so that we can pay this player because we've promised them this money, then you are sadly mistaken and living in a la-la land, because there are schools that have gotten busted for cheating before. There are schools that probably will get busted for cheating in the future that we play on our schedule every year in some sport, and it is just a wild world for the College Sports Commission to sit here and think that, oh, everybody's just going to wait and follow the rules.
Well, and we got, I mean, here's a good example of kind of illustrates what you're saying. I think a lot of people, well, as soon as revenue share gets here, it's gonna lower the numbers. But it's being reported that some college football rosters, because of front loading, front loading being using non-revenue share dollars that have been collected up to this point to go ahead and pay out the roster for this season on top of revenue share, start planning for the future. In a nutshell, $50 million rosters, right? Like last year, it was, what was the highest? Ohio State was about $20 million, it was said. You're going to have $50 million rosters this year. Now, you could say, okay, I get that, Chris, but after this year, when you have a full calendar year of rev share and these quote-unquote new rules, you won't be able to front load. I go back to your point, though, Mark. If there's a structure of rules, we know that people will either go outside of them or they will stay in them in kind of a gray area and be able to work around, right? Like that. Actually, the whole idea of an NIL collective was something that clearly the NCAA didn't see coming. They thought,
yes, absolutely. When the Supreme Court ruled 9-0 on July 1st, 2021, I don't think the NIL collectives had even crossed the NCAA's mind.
But smart people who are savvy and are competitive said, we're going to create NIL collectives, right? And
Garnet Trust, one of the first 15 created in America.
One of the first ones. And so, again, you go outside. So I just don't think any of this is actually, just my opinion, actually solving the problems per se. I think we're just kind of constantly kicking the can down the road and trying to figure out, like, how do you navigate the current structure? That's the way I see it.
Yeah, plenty more to dive into as the Garnet Trust Hour presented by Creighton Schooling and Heating rolls along here on your Thursday on the Game.
All right, anybody out there that's ever had any issues with your Wi-Fi, know that you're not alone. Most people have, and many times issues with your Wi-Fi at your home can be caused by an old router and modem or an aging Wi-Fi network that's not up to today's demanding standards. Let the folks over at Integrated Media be your Wi-Fi experts. Come out, test your Wi-Fi during a free in-home consultation. They'll inspect your current hardware. They'll run speed tests at different locations inside and outside the home. And they can even advise you on your current service provider to see if you're up to date and make sure you're not overpaying on your bill every month. Is it time, for example, to make the jump to fiber internet? That's very possible. Integrated Media can recommend, sell, and install the Wi-Fi equipment you need to update your home and get you up to speed. 803-948-8327 or give Michael, Nathan, their team a call at that number or go to integratedmediainc.com.
Welcome back in. Garnet Trust Hour presented by Krantz Cooling and Heating. Tyler Ed and Chris Clark hanging out with Mark Benoit and Grace Area of the Garnet Trust here on your Thursday. We're just talking in the last segment there. Of course, now with the new revenue sharing era, the College Sports Commission is the presiding power over these deals being done and the potential punishment if there is some if you don't follow the rules. And Mark, we're in this new era now. The NCAA has been getting progressively weaker as the years go by in this, NIL, now revenue sharing era. And right now they're at their weakest point. And really, as we're unfortunately learning with their Phil Faison situation, really the only thing they have power over, it seems like, is eligibility at this point. So the presiding power over college sports for over 100 years is now essentially turning over that authority power to this new commission that, again, we still don't fully quite understand everything that they can do up to this point.
The problem with college sports right now, I'm glad you asked this question because I told Chris and Grace I was going to go on a rant in this segment. But the problem with college sports right now is there's no one that is in charge that cares about the betterment of college sports. It's everybody for themselves, right? I mean, like until you have, and this might be just an inherent problem with the way the system's set up, but like in the NFL, I've made this comparison a couple of times. Jerry Jones realized a long time ago, whenever he was winning Super Bowls, that
It's been a while.
what was good for the NFL was good for the Dallas Cowboys. He realized that probably before a lot of owners did, and I mean, and that is, I think, that's why they embrace this whole America's team. Now they're the most valuable sports franchise in the world, and he realized long ago what was good for the NFL was good for the Dallas Cowboys. And we are in a position in college sports right now where the only thing that the leaders of college sports are thinking are what is good for the University of South Carolina, what is good for the SEC, what is good for Tennessee, Texas A&M, you name it, Oregon, Southern Cal. You've got transfer portals, you've got conference realignment that has just gone totally wackadoodle because you got USC traveling to Rutgers to go play a college volleyball game. I mean, like we have lost sight of what is good for college sports because we have no leadership. And you brought it up. I mean, the NCAA has traditionally been that leader, but at that point, it becomes the university's fault to a certain degree because they are member institutions that run the NCAA, and they probably liked it because they could be. Because everybody was in charge, and that meant nobody was in charge, which meant that they could do whatever was best for those current institutions, right? Whereas now, it does seem that the fans are starting to realize that you've got to have a little bit of leadership and a little bit of direction. I mean, you've got, like, for example, this was very low watched college football national championship. One, because it drifted more than halfway through the month of January. The calendar didn't line up. You've got bowl games that people aren't caring about anymore, that people aren't attending as much anymore. I mean, I have been to Orlando or Tampa or the Liberty Bowl for some really crappy cold bowl games sometimes. I've sat in the coldest football game I've ever sat in my entire life at the PapaJohns.com Bowl in 2010, I guess it was 2010.
2009, 10, one of those.
Yeah, I think it was in 2010, but it was for the 2009 season, something like that. And I felt like there were more Gamecocks in Birmingham, Alabama, than there were for a PapaJohns.com Bowl where you lost to UConn 20-7, than there were in Orlando, Florida, for a top 15 matchup. And I mean, we're just losing sight of like the betterment of college sports, not just football, basketball, volleyball, track and field, tennis, golf, whatever it is. And so I think that we've got to have some leadership step up and try to do that. I mean, and I do think that there's a lot of congressional effort to try to get in front of this and try to create some kind of structure where that can happen. But at the same time, do we really want Congress running college sports? Right. And so, I mean, that's that's my rant right now. But I mean, I think it is a problem.
Well, and you bring up the point of not having that central authority figure because let's face it, this is professional sports at this point because the athletes are getting paid. But the NFL has Roger Goodell, the NBA has Adam Silver, MLB has Rob Manfred, and they do work for the owners. But you do have a central authority figure that everything kind of goes through when it comes to the power of the league that we don't have in college sports, never have, and don't know if we ever will. Because if you come to the decision of wanting to have one of those, how do you go about making that happen? Who decides who that's going to be, and how does everybody agree that that's the person in charge of that responsibility?
Well, and even within, let's take college football, for example, right? You've got the NCAA who decides eligibility cases at this point in time. You've got the College Sport Commission who is kind of managing the payment of the athletes. You've got the College Football Playoff Committee that is managing the championship structure. And so it's like, and then that's governed by the conferences. So then within all of that, you've got 3 or 4 different organizations that are quote unquote in charge. And right now you see it yesterday. I mean, the Big 12 Media Days started yesterday, and that was the hot topic for the first half of the day was whether the Big 12 supported a 5-11 playoff model for 16 teams. Meanwhile, to be honest with you, I don't think the 12-team model worked really well, right? I mean, and so it's like you set up, Oregon was the number 1 seed. You set them up horribly by having to go. They didn't get to host a game. They had to go to the Rose Bowl, and they ran into the hottest team in America. Granted, Ohio State at the time was probably playing the best football that anybody was playing. And I'm not saying that Ohio State was not a deserving champion, but you did not reward Oregon at all for having a undefeated season to that point in time. The calendar sucked, right? In the aspect of that you're playing on January 19th on a Monday night, for the record, that you're playing a college football championship game that less than half the people that watched maybe 2/3 of the people that watched it the year before didn't or watched it this time. And so it's like you're losing within college football, you're losing that. I mean, I've compared it for a long time to NASCAR, and Tyler and I are big NASCAR fans here, is that if you lose your core fan base, then it's really hard to get it back.
Yeah.
And I think that, I'm not saying that college football, because college football is a little different because you're inherently putting out more college fans every year for your institution. But if you lose your core support, then it's going to be really hard to get it back. And I think the lack of management in the transfer portal, the lack of management on the conference realignment, the lack of management on the calendar has really put college sports in a bad spot. I think NIL is great. I think the transfer portal is great because I think it evens the playing field. You got more teams signing 5 stars now than have ever signed it before. There's more parity across the sport. You look at the NCAA basketball tournament, and you had 8 really, really good teams that all could have won the national championship within the Elite 8. That's what you want. The reality is that TV doesn't want San Diego State in the Final Four. They want San Diego State to upset somebody in round 1, but the reality is that if you want to tune in for viewership, you want Kentucky versus Duke in the national championship. And so I think there are a lot of great things about where we are in college sports right now, but I do worry that the lack of leadership causes us to not have a visionary future.
Well, and I think we just kind of focused on the wrong things. It's not as simple. Like I yelled about bargaining a lot. You can't just say, do collective bargaining right now. Like it's not that simple legally. You can't. You would have to change a lot of different things. But I feel like we haven't been focused on creatively creating, like you mentioned the word structure. We don't have the structure also to do a lot of things. And I think you're right. Our leadership has not been focused. For a while, the leadership was no leadership in the NCAA. Mark Emmert for years and the member institutions, they just totally ignored the headwinds that had clearly been building towards NIL, and some of the things that we saw. Greg Sankey, I frequently am on his case because he refuses to solve the officiating issue. That's probably the biggest problem in the SEC across multiple sports. We saw that a lot in football this year. So it is fragmented, and the leadership, we have a long way to go. I'm with you. I'm not going to turn this into a political show. Mark, I know you have a political background. I don't want Congress, touching college sports. I think a big reason, frankly, that they are playing in this space is because they see that some of their constituency is concerned about it, and so they insert themselves. Do they really care? Probably not. Are their solutions actually good? In my opinion, probably not. And we've seen there's been how many different bills? A million, and none of them have gotten pushed through so far.
It does seem to I do seem to think that now that reconciliation is over in Congress and they've passed a spending appropriations taxation bill, then it does seem like there's a little bit more momentum for something the second half of the year for college sports. I do know that yesterday Ross Dellinger and Pete Nakos both reported that there's going to be a new bill introduced in the next day or two on the House side, and it seems to correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, based on reporting, it seems to think that they might even have the votes on the House side to try to get something passed, which would be that is the farthest thing that we've heard of ever potentially happening right now. So there does seem to be a little bit of momentum behind it. Now I haven't read the details of the bill. It's going to go through markup. It's going to do the committee markup. There are a lot of ways before it gets to a finalized bill, but it does seem that Congress, maybe now they've gotten through reconciliation, would be willing to entertain some ideas.
It is the Garden Trust Hour, brought to you by Krantz Cooling and Heating. We'll come back and wrap things up with Grace and Mark from the Garden Trust here on your Thursday on the Game. Welcome back in. It is the Garnet Trust Hour brought to you by Krantz Cooling and Heating. Tyler and Chris with Mark Minoid and Grace Area of the Garnet Trust for a couple more minutes here on your Thursday. I feel like this hour is kind of a perfect encapsulate and embodiment of what college sports is right now. We've obviously spent the past 45 minutes talking about the rev share and the NIL and all the changes. Meanwhile, we are 52 days away from kickoff. Carolina and Virginia Tech do square off at the end of next month. We're almost to the season, the actual games getting played started, to where we can actually focus on that a little bit more as opposed to all the litigation and legal things going on outside of the fields and the courts.
Yeah, I'm excited. 52 days. I went to all 13 games last year. Not going to all 13 this year, but I will be in Atlanta for the Virginia Tech game. I want to give Krantz Cooling and Heating a little bit of shout out. I had my air conditioning unit on the upstairs of my house went out a couple of weeks ago, and I was out of town. Got in contact with them overnight and had somebody at my house before noon the next morning. Got it fixed and easy to go.
Wow.
So I was very excited to use Krantz Cooling and Heating to cool down my house before I returned back from vacation.
Hey, we don't lie to the people.
No,
They're great.
We're not surprised. The dudes do a great job. So, which games are you missing, by the way?
I am not going to A&M. I'm not going to Missouri.
I don't blame you.
And Columbia, Missouri is underrated place. It rained the whole time I was there last time, but Ryan Olinsky threw a backwards pass. But
Yes, he did.
it was not ruled backwards originally, but then they changed it, gave him a touchdown to the old Missouri Tigers. But not going to Columbia, Missouri, not going to Como, not going to College Station, and I think I will be missing the Coastal Carolina home game because I will be traveling to the Greenbrier to watch the Gamecocks men's basketball team in the Greenbrier tip-off.
Wow.
So,
Okay.
Cool.
So those are the three I'm missing.
Grace, what about you? What's your
My goal
schedule?
is just to make it to every home game.
Okay.
Hopefully, a few away games. I'd love to go to LSU, but it's to be
You
determined.
need to go to Ole Miss.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll put
Yeah,
that on
the
my list.
Grove.
But this will
Yeah.
be the first time I go to every single home game now that I've secured some season tickets. So I'm excited.
You got one circled above the others, one you're most excited about? Some big names coming in this year.
I'm excited for Alabama, but I think I'm most excited for Clemson.
Good answer.
Clemson home game. I think the last Clemson home game I was celebrating in the student section, but not celebrating, which isn't very exciting. So
Well, we're going to be celebrating. I hope Lenoris runs for 400 yards and 5 touchdowns or something like that against the Clemson Tigers.
Yeah, hopefully it's not a nail biter this year.
There's a renewed argument for some reason. We always poke fun at the Clemson people on the show who say that Lenoris is a running back and all that.
Well,
It's like that's come. I don't know why right now that it's come back up.
I know exactly why. Because last night at 9 o'clock on the SEC Network, Clemson fans could have tuned in to watch Lenoir Sellers just slice up that great defense of theirs for a couple of touchdowns to win the game on 3rd and 16. It's probably one of my favorite plays.
Well, apparently, Cade Klubnik's a running back too because he hasn't ever thrown a touchdown. Against
I saw that yesterday. I didn't even realize that statistic until Cade Klubnik has only scored, 2 touchdowns ever against the Gamecocks?
both rushing touchdowns. So he's a running back.
At Death Valley.
Well,
yeah, running back.
In Death Valley.
That
right?
one, that one didn't get brought up as much. Weird how that works, right?
Yeah, I don't know. But anyway, what's your season prediction? I'm just kidding. But you can give us some.
Listen, I think we're set up to be in a good spot. I think we're really talented. I think any time that you have a quarterback named Lenoir Sellers, then you're going to have a chance in every game. I mean, really, realistically, last year we were competitive in 11 of 12 games. I don't see a game on the schedule right now that I don't expect the Gamecocks to be competitive in, and excited to see what we can do against the Hokies in Atlanta.
You have an area of biggest concern on this team, replacing a lot of talent from a year ago. One particular area you're like, I need to see this be better, like with my own eyes before I believe it.
I have a lot of faith in the guys that we have brought in. I think in the SEC, you have to have a really good team. You got to be able to run the ball and stop the run. Those are Will Muschamp's favorite words, and he might not have had a great record at South Carolina, but I think he is dead on about that. You got to be able to stop the run and run the ball. And we're replacing our leading tailback, and we're replacing most of our defensive line. So I think that those are probably areas that I am hyper focused on. I do think that we've got some really good talent in the running back room. I hope the NCAA does the right thing and clear Rasul Faison. And then I mean, Gabe Brownlow-Dindy, Zay Hardy, Nick Barrett, Monkel Goodwine, I think are a strong 4 rotation that could be really, really impactful at the defense tackle position.
Grace, who's your couple sleeper players to watch?
This year, DQ Smith, I think,
Okay.
should have a good year. Personally, we've talked, and he said that this offseason he's actually really focused on coming out and just playing hard for his senior year.
I think DQ in the absence of Nick Imawari will really be a leader in our secondary.
Needs to be.
I think when they came in, they kind of came in together. Nick kind of took that leadership role, was probably a little ahead of DQ that first year, and has kind of taken the fans' attention. But I do think that DQ will step into that role, and Jalen Kilgore as well.
Well, and South Carolina has a reputation of putting at least one DB in the draft almost every single year. So between DQ and Jalen, maybe both of them, I mean, you're feeling pretty good about those two guys and what they have coming in this year to continue to add to that legacy.
Yeah, Jalen is getting a lot of NFL buzz, this offseason. So probably need to enjoy him while he's around. He'll be a junior this year. He's going to have, I think, if he has the type of season that's built off his first two, going to have a great opportunity, I think, to make that jump. But first things first,
Yep.
he's got to go play it out. I think he's going to have a really good year.
Should be a fun year. Thanks for coming by, guys. And with how much change is constantly in this world of college sports, I'm sure I'll be back in here before too long.
Thank you, Tyler. Thank you,
All right.
Chris.
Thank you.
It is the Garnet Trust Hour presented by Krantz Schooling Heating. Coming up next, Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs on your Thursday on the game.
All right, you heard Mark from Garnet Trust telling us about how the guys over at Krantz Cooling and Heating helped him out by, your upstairs unit out. Bad vibes, bad feelings when that happens, especially with how hot it's been lately. But the folks over at Krantz Cooling and Heating were able to take care of him. And he's not the only happy customer in the studio. I have had Krantz come out to my house. They did such a great job at my home. Sent him out to my mom's home in Irmo as well. So they're taking care of all of us here on the station. KrantzCooling.com. That's KRANTZ, cooling with a K.com, or give them a call at 803-672-3224. Since 1983, the folks over at Krantz Cooling and Heating have been providing local, reliable HVAC service to businesses and homeowners all around the Midlands. They can do the same for you. Installation, maintenance, repairs. They can take care of it all. Schedule an appointment at KrantzCooling.com or 803-672-3224.
11 o'clock on your Thursday morning. Welcome in Gamecock Central Takeover Hour, presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler West Chris along with you here on the game. Again, appreciate Mark Benoit and Grace Area of the Garnet Trust for hanging out with us there in the last segment as, again, we are in this new era of college sports. And, again, I think we're all ready for the games to get started so we can finally stop talking about the off-the-field things, legal battles, legislation, and finally start talking about what's actually going to be happening when it comes to playing games.
Yeah, don't y'all feel like so for all the just college football is dead, this stinks, I hate it, blah, blah, blah. There were some fantastic football games last year.
Sure.
Like, once it got going, I mean, in the ratings, I believe, if I remember correctly, back to this up, like, people were very entertained. And so you just got to get there and, get to that point where you can actually sit back and enjoy the games. And, we haven't had, that I know of, any cases of starters, like, transferring in the middle of the season. So, I think for the most part, once you can get there, then you just have your normal college football devastating things happening, not your off-the-field transfer devastating things happening.
The only drama last year, I guess, was Sluka at UNLV and the supposed.
But that one was kind of fun, a little bit.
That was interesting.
Outside looking in.
The supposed $100,000 that he never ended up getting, but that was kind of the only NIL-ish
Where'd
type
he end
drama.
up?
Where did he end up? That's a good question.
I was just sitting here thinking about that too. So he was going to UNLV. Is that right?
Yeah. He started at Holy Cross.
Started at Holy Cross.
Transferred
to UNLV.
He was playing, right?
Yeah, he was
playing. He was their guy.
Playing well.
Yeah, so that was the next year. Yeah,
they were 4-0 or something like that. He's at James Madison now.
Yep, that's right.
He did the sit out and red shirt and.
Yeah, and the bad thing is they kind of got better after he sat out because the dude that came in behind him played really well. So that probably didn't help his case out too much.
Yeah, remember it was one of those things too where some of the people that knew that team were like, "Hey, this other guy might be just as good."
I remember that.
Everybody was kind of like, I guess it ended up being the case.
Yeah,
That's how it goes.
yeah. Just the normal devastating things during the season. You like to try to limit those too.
Yeah, but I mean,
Ideally.
Can we go through a year, and I hate to bring it. I mean, we were just talking about it a little bit last hour, Wes. We were talking about college football leadership. Can we go through a year where there's not an absurdly, egregiously bad officiating performance
Of course not.
in the SEC? Okay, just making sure. I didn't think so, but
That's wishful
I was
thinking.
hopeful, but we probably won't fix it.
I think it can be fun to debate what game that's going to happen in. What high-profile game this year is going to have some kind of gaffe that everybody talks about.
Just don't make it the LSU game again on the road.
Yeah,
That'd be just too much to handle.
it'd be 10 times worse being there and it happening. Texas can throw bottles on the field too. That's apparently a thing to get things overturned.
Yeah.
Forgot about that.
Strategy.
Yeah. So there's gonna be something stupid we're gonna have to come in and talk about the following Monday. SC really screwed this one up again because that's just kind of the norm. Either way, we are 52 days away from the season starting, and you know what time it is. Time for more trivia. And again, I will go jersey numbers here, not the 1952 South Carolina season, because it's getting a little bit harder to pull things out of some of these teams when you get into the mid-1950s and on into the 40s, because not as many interesting nuggets about those teams. However, 2 years ago, Stone Blanton wore number 52 for South Carolina. Yes, he did end up transferring to Mississippi State last season. Question of the day, how many yards was his pick six against Jacksonville State that sealed the game for the Gamecocks? Price is right. Closest answer wins.
I was wondering if you're going to ask a Stone Blanton question.
Do you have another 52 that comes to mind? That's,
I do.
Jasper Brinkley.
okay.
Yeah.
That's the immediate 52, but that was a little bit before your time here, Tyler.
From Thompson, Georgia.
So Price is Right style, closest, but you can't go over, or more just
it's
closest?
just whatever the closest is. If you're
Okay.
closest by being 3 over
Okay.
or 4 under, whatever.
I'm going to go 76 yards.
All right, Chris?
I had a number that came to my mind, but I'm kind of thinking it's not right. Let me do some math in my head. 68 yards.
68-76. 76 wins. It was 88 yards.
Yeah.
He returned the pick six
golly.
for.
Stone.
And again, Jacksonville State was on their way to take the lead there and potentially win that game. And there was no help on the back end. If he does not pick that up, if it goes 2 inches over his fingertips, they're scoring that touchdown on that wheel route, and it might be game over there. But thankfully,
I needed that one.
Thankfully, he saved the day.
Needed that point.
Now,
All right, I have a bonus point for what? Do you have a bonus, Tyler?
I
Were you
do,
about to
but
break
you
one
can
out?
also throw one in there too. I'll
Okay,
let
you go.
first.
You go first. Mine's
You want me to
completely
go first?
unrelated. Yes.
All right, since we're talking about Stone Blanding, can you tell me what NFL roster he's on right now as an undrafted free agent?
God.
The Raiders.
The 49ers.
49ers wins.
I actually had seen that.
Oh
Yeah.
my God.
Yeah, I saw that a while back. But I wasn't like, I didn't know if my memory like failed me.
So,
You know.
Wes, you still lead by half a point, 11.5 to 11. So, still winning.
If Jack didn't give him any points today,
Now I'm gonna give Wes an opportunity for a bonus.
Okay.
Since I'm feeling charitable. I feel like you'll get this one too. This is almost too easy.
well,
Head coach for South Carolina football, Shane Beamer. When he was an assistant, what former 4-star prospect did he sign that wore number 52 at South Carolina? He was the lead recruiter. Half a point.
half
is
a
on the
point.
table.
All
yes.
right.
You could take a full 1 point lead if you get it.
What former South Carolina player that Shane Beamer recruited
As an assistant.
as an assistant?
So not this tenure, last one.
Yeah. Or 52.
Yep.
This is bad radio.
52 is usually like offensive line / linebacker.
It's not coming to me.
No.
I don't know.
Philip Dukes. From Manning. The pride of Manning.
Yeah.
Philip Dukes,
Defensive lineman.
former 4-star
Interior
prospect.
guy.
Yeah.
Good
I
call.
thought you were going to nail that one.
It just wasn't coming to me.
We're getting to
Getting too old.
we're getting a little washed on our like former recruiting, which guy we like 5 years ago it's like, can you name the entire 2007 recruiting class? And we're like, oh yeah, we got this. And now I'm like, who's in that?
Might be a fun trivia question one day. See if you guys can tell me the entire recruiting class for a
Please,
single year.
please don't.
It's your job. I mean, covered these guys.
Not it's
remember-
it's not my job to know that
Well, I
that
don't know.
far back. That was a long time
Especially
ago.
the number of newcomers you have now.
Yeah.
Like I was thinking about that.
Yeah.
I don't remember newcomers from classes 2 years ago anymore, just because there's so many.
Yeah, that's true.
And
A lot of them have transferred
some of
now.
them play. Some
Yeah.
they come in for a year. Like, it's different, obviously. But yeah, Philip Dukes. I don't know about y'all, but something like that. If I either get it instantly or it's just not. It's not coming through.
yeah.
And all I could still see was Jasper when I was trying to envision
Trying to block out.
52s. Tried to block Jasper, it didn't work.
Not many people had success with that.
Now, do you guys have a recommendation for 51 ahead of tomorrow? Anybody that stands out?
Casper Brinkley.
Yes.
Okay.
Also from Thompson,
Nah,
Georgia.
I don't.
51 was Corey Helms, right?
I think so.
Cody Waldrop. I'm sorry if Corey's listening. I'm sorry if I got your number wrong. For some reason, I was thinking he was 51. Cody, yes, he was. Corey Helms, 51. Cody Waldrop, 51.
Okay.
We're tuned in though that you might ask a
Yeah.
question about those guys.
I want to get your perspective here because, again, you guys have a more intimate knowledge of who or what numbers way back in the day. So I'll look into that.
You calling those guys old?
No.
They're not that way back in the day.
Listen, I've been here covering this team for 3 years, so there are numbers
Anything-
and things that I'm not
anything before
quite
that?
as up to snuff on from the times before that. So
Okay.
just an idea of where tomorrow's question might come from. So be prepared.
I just got a random 51 that just popped in my head. You don't
Oh.
play the game where you're just naming players, like just
Guys naming dudes.
Guy-
is my favorite pastime.
Guys talking about dudes. Oh, what
I'm
about
gonna see if I can send this name to Chris.
Okay.
Well, we do that a lot.
Well,
yeah.
telepathy in studio.
Yes, yeah, and I think he just got it.
Okay.
If I'm thinking of I'm worried I'm going to get
Now,
the
does he
number
get
wrong.
a point or anything if he gets this right?
I'll give him a half
All
point,
right, half point.
if he
All right.
can.
To tie.
Yes,
If I can successfully
If he can
link my
successfully
brain.
link- yeah,
Yeah.
But I think he's got it.
Forrest Lambert. Yes.
Half
Yes.
a point.
Tyler.
We're all tied up.
Yeah.
Wow. How about that? Now,
Yes.
what-
I knew it.
how did you send this telepathy to him? What was your indicator of, I think Chris knows what I'm talking about?
I just saw like a little twinkle in his eye because I mean I feel like is Oris still around Columbia? I randomly
him sometimes,
I
yeah.
randomly see him places.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I don't know. There's not many 51s.
Yeah, it's a little more of an obscure number. What do you
Although
it's
Oris is from 20 years ago that he played.
yeah, again,
So-
linebacker O-line type of number typically. Yeah, not as prevalent, I guess.
He was on the first Spurrier team and actually played quite a bit. Had 49 tackles and 2 sacks from his defensive end spot. So
Nice.
that was when they were really trying to like put the pieces together on defense.
Well, I will do my best effort to come up with an interesting question for 51 days until kickoff tomorrow. But today, Stone Blanton, 52 days until kickoff as we get set for South Carolina and Virginia Tech. As we still await the ruling on Rasul Faison, nothing came of yesterday. We'll dive into that and the running back room as a whole. Coming up next is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Rolls along on your Thursday on the game. Welcome back in. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. It's our West Chris along with you on your Thursday here on the game. Yesterday, we were all hopeful to learn something about Rasul Faison. Reports earlier on in the week that Wednesday could have been a decision day, but West Chris, you both brought up yesterday that we didn't know for sure if that was actually going to happen or not, and lo and behold, it did indeed not happen as we were here on July the 10th, 7 months into the process, still waiting to see if Rasul Faison is going to be eligible for the season that is, again, only 52 days away.
Yeah, just copy and paste whatever I said Tuesday, whatever I said 2 weeks ago, whatever I said a month ago. Obviously, they want him to be eligible. It's drawn out long enough. I said it yesterday, though. This is a process. I definitely understand. I'm not going to sit here and just defend the NCAA blindly. At the same time, the more we've kind of gathered on this, the more it does seem like this has been definitely a back-and-forth process in terms of, hey, well, we need a little bit more information on this. We need a little bit more information on that. It has played out longer than was expected, but it was not just a matter, I think, to fairly say of, hey, here's the documents, and then you just never hear from the NCAA again. Like, this has been a back and forth, a give and take. Going back, you would think, like, it wasn't that long ago that he was going to Marshall, but a lot has happened in college athletics since then. So I do think even going back what's really truly not that long ago and trying to make sure, all right, is this what exactly happened? Why exactly did he delay enrollment? How was it processed at that time? Like, I think all these things are maybe factors. And ultimately, though, you do just have, I think, the common sense element of the kid did not play college football for a number of years. Yeah. And it was not, I think, important to remember, it was not that he was just not able to get on the field. He was not standing on the sideline, but had no stats. He literally was not on the football team for a number of these years. And 2020 is not supposed to count anyway.
Sure.
For anyone.
Yeah.
So, it's a little bit more to it than just, hey, give him the free JUCO year. But common sense should ultimately rule the day. Guys, I think South Carolina has positioned itself to where there is a little bit of a fallback plan if this does go against them. And that's why you go out, you go and add another portal running back. You do add an insurance plan. Ultimately, there's not a ton of pressure unless there are injuries. There's not a ton of pressure right now on Jawarn Howell and Matt Fuller. But if for whatever reason this goes the wrong way for Carolina and for Sewell, all of a sudden there is, I think, a little bit of pressure on at least one of those two to step up.
Well, and I want to kind of go guy by guy here of what we do know is going to be available in the backfield. By the way, Rasul Faison does have a decision to make here very soon if he doesn't get a ruling on the eligibility, like, hey, if he's going to try and make it in the NFL, either with supplemental draft if they have it this year or try and make it on somebody's camp roster. That's happening here very soon. Like, he has days essentially to decide that. If that's his course of action, we don't get a ruling. So we're gonna know about the state of the running back room, I feel like, very soon, whether it be by an NCAA decision or Rasul Faison saying, hey, I've waited long enough. I got to go try and continue my career at the next level here very, very soon.
Yeah, and I think, guys, to be honest, I mean, you're talking about those routes to the NFL are, frankly, kind of long shot routes, I think. And by far, the best route, assuming he gets eligible, is to go to South Carolina, or he's already here, but to be eligible at South Carolina and rush for about 850 yards in the SEC this year and be dynamic and score a bunch of points, alongside Lenora Sellers in the backfield. So, my guess, like, he's been working with the team now for months. Still has been working hard every day, just like if he was going to be on the field this year. By far, the best option for him is that he goes out and plays with South Carolina. So I don't think he's going to be too keen to take those routes until he absolutely has to. But that's my opinion. We'll see, obviously.
So, again, let's kind of go guy by guy here in the running back room of who we know is going to be available. for this upcoming season. And if Faison is not eligible, that kind of moves Oscar Attaway III into that primary role. And he's a guy that's played a lot of college football from his time at North Texas. Obviously played that second guy role to Rocket Sanders a year ago. He's never led a team in carries, so he was kind of that second, 1B option when he was at North Texas, but has the ability, obviously can catch out of the backfield, good after contact. So he can do a little bit of everything. I think the question with him becomes of, okay, can he handle the bulk of the load if that does end up being the case with him this fall?
Yeah, older guy as well, veteran, has become more of a leader on this team. And, yeah, I think he certainly has shown you, to an extent what he can do, especially in terms of being that 1-2 punch guy. I don't know if you necessarily want him taking all the handoffs. This is a guy that has been in that other role for much of his career. I know he is very motivated to go prove whatever the role is that he can do that this offseason. I think there's a sense he's maybe taking another step forward in his game, but certainly I think you need two regardless. Like I think Oscar is gonna be one of your guys regardless, but I think they will do everything in their power, whether it is Faison and he is approved, or whether it's one of those other guys, to kind of frankly throw him into the fire and get them ready. Like I don't think they're gonna magically go to, hey, we're just gonna feed one back. The only time you do that is if you have, a Marcus Lattimore, you have a Rocket Sanders, you have a guy that's just obviously better. I don't know that that's going to be the case with Carolina regardless.
I do think that, at least this is the sense I've gotten, is that if Faison is playing this year, man, everything we've heard kind of leads me to believe that they believe that there's number one potential there, which he's been in his career at times. And so if that's not the case, the question kind of becomes, okay, who is the number one? How do you split carries? I feel like the whole split carries thing, when you have more than one capable back in the room, that's always a preseason talking point, not just here, anywhere. Oh, we got 3 or 4 backs. How will they split carries? And there's just not enough to go around. Unless you have injuries, it's not typical that you go through a season and you see, okay, these 3 guys on the roster have equal carries. Mm-hmm. What you want to have is depth to where you feel good about it. And so, bringing up Oscar, he's someone that I think you kind of, to a degree, you know what you're getting. He's got a lot of experience. He's played a lot of college football. He's been here a year, so he's not a new transfer. You kind of know what you're getting. Are there other guys on the roster that might have bigger, like number one type potential? Maybe so, like a Howell, a Fuller, who Wes and I are very high on Matt Fuller, but he hasn't played,
Yep.
And so, yeah, there's a lot of potential, but that's kind of a key word there, is potential. That's not going and, throwing a block on a third down in Baton Rouge at night. That's not, hey, we got to have this right here.
Sure.
From a talent, there's a difference between just having the talent to do it and then being trusted to do it in a game.
And looking next kind of on that list, I do have Jordan Howell, who, again, when he came in from SC State a year ago, we knew he was probably not going to be a guy that's going to make a huge impact in year number one, just kind of given the depth of the running back room, but somebody that had only played 1 year of college football and thought to be more of a long-term play here. And when he got his opportunities, you saw him be able to do some cool things, rip off some long runs, had some good stuff go to the bowl game prior to that fumble. I still don't think we fully understand what he can completely be at this level, but here comes an opportunity, again, if Faison was not to be ruled eligible, that allows him to get more carries in this backfield so we can really see what he can do at the SEC level.
Yeah, for sure, man. And I think with Jawarn, he's got some explosiveness to him. He, to me, looks kind of like one of those one-cut runners that he's going to get the top-end speed fairly quickly and then one cut and go. And he can create some big plays like that. I like the explosiveness that he does have. You do have to cut. Now, I think whenever you talk about fumbling, is it a problem? If a guy fumbles in his minimal opportunities, we're all going to be thinking about the fumble. That's a huge fumble for him. I don't think he returned to the bowl game after that fumble. It was obviously a key play in that game. Now, that might be the one fumble he would have had in 300 carries, but it happened to come in this small sample size. So we think about that. I have been told that there's a belief that both Jawarn and Matt Fuller are kind of on the cusp of like taking that next step. The question is which one of them, and maybe it's both, maybe it's neither. Which one of them like goes out there and does it? The first step to doing that obviously would be to take that next step in practice, and then that gives you the opportunity to see yourself go do it and have that chance in a game. And the thing, running back is, to Chris's point, it's weird when you start talking about depth, because let's say you're that third guy. You could go from like not really playing, potentially literally not playing, and then one game later, they're going, "Hey, you're in this 1-2 rotation, and this will be one injury. Hey man, we need you to go carry the ball 15 times and pass pro 15 different times." And you just go from like that jump from being the third back to the second back is a massive one. And so that, I think that's kind of, you look at position battles, that's one of those little battles within the battles. Who, it's even if let's say Faison is good to go and Attaway, those are your 1-2 punch. Who takes the third back role? Because you're going to have guys get banged up or bruised up at some point, and there's going to be that opportunity to step in.
Yeah, we'll certainly have to see. We'll continue on through the running back room, taking a look at Matthew Fuller as well as Isaiah Gustave coming up next as the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs rolls along here on your Thursday on the Game. Welcome back in. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler West Chris taking a look at the South Carolina running back room. Again, with the eligibility of Rasul Faison still up in the air. At least 4 known commodities that are going to be getting carries and be featured in the offense this upcoming year. We talked about Oscar Attaway and Jordan Howell there in that last segment. We'll take a look at the more unknown guys of the 4. Talking first about Isaiah Augustov coming in out of Colorado a couple weeks ago, which, again, is part of kind of the contingency plan. It seems like if Faison is not really eligible, you at least get another running back that's played college football that you can kind of rely on there. The thing about Augustov, and we talked about this when he transferred in a few weeks back, he played behind a very bad offensive line. He played in an offense primarily revolved around Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter, getting the ball more often than not. Yeah, he led the team in carries, but I still don't think we fully know what he's capable of that could potentially, burst onto the scene here at South Carolina, assuming the offensive line plays better and they use him a little bit more than they did when he was at Colorado. But he's somebody that is pretty decent after contact, forced some missed tackles, and don't really quite know how he factors into the passing game, but there's potential there. So kind of a lot of unknowns with him that we'll have to kind of wait and see, depending on how many times he gets to touch the ball this fall.
Yeah, unknowns, but also I think it's better than just having a freshman come in where everything is unknown. And, unless it's like a 5-star Marcus Lattimore type freshman, at least this guy has played in front of crowds. He's had some production. I mean, he's 6'2", 210 pounds is what he's listed at. So you're talking about a big kid. Was their leading rusher last year, although, as you said, I don't know if that necessarily tells us a ton. 384 yards, 4 touchdowns on 85 carries. And, I think for him, man, he could come in and there's a huge array of possibilities, right? And what I mean by that is some guys you kind of have a good feel like, all right, this guy's going to be a starter. This guy's going to be a backup, but he's going to play a lot. With him, if you told me, like you fast forward, 6 months and you said, hey, man, this guy really didn't play a ton at all. They actually were able to redshirt him. I'd be like, okay. That for one, that probably means good things for Faison. He does have a redshirt year. Makes sense. If you told me, well, this guy started out at the end of the depth chart, looked more comfortable on the field than just about anybody, not named Attaway, and ended up being the number 2 back, I'd say that's a real possibility. And I made the case, or I had the thought, this could be the most important transfer portal pickup of the entire offseason if he ends up being needed. Or, like I said, he could not even make an impact. So in terms of kind of style, we were told he's also kind of that one-cut runner type, has vision, has some patience, but also is an aggressive guy when it comes to actually hitting the hole. Solid production, as Tyler said, after contact. Pretty good lateral movement, good acceleration. Not a burner, but has solid top-end speed, and also is a capable receiver, was the scouting report that I got on him once he committed to South Carolina.
Yeah, I mean, a guy that's, it's not like you're getting, like you said, Wes, a Marcus Lattimore-esque get as a freshman. It's not like you're getting, okay, this guy started at, Ohio State for 3 years and was maybe the best player on the field. Like, you're not getting that. There are still some questions here, but what you are getting is a guy who, was a highly ranked high school recruit, started out at an SEC school at Arkansas, started at Colorado. I think you laid it out well there, Tyler. Bad offensive line, not a huge focal point, but was a starter for that team, has good size, has traits, and has played some at the college level too, so not a totally unproven commodity. And if you're talking about going and adding another guy as this thing dragged on with Faison, it totally made sense. It was not a sign. Again, we're sitting here on July 10th with still a very real possibility that Faison is cleared. And if so, then that just changes the equation of the room and makes it a little bit more of a luxury pickup that could also factor in and certainly go earn some snaps this season. But if it doesn't work out, then it becomes a very valuable insurance policy. Now where he ends up in the pecking order, it's kind of hard to tell right now, but I think you do figure this is a guy that steps in and is ultimately a part of that conversation, and you just got to kind of see where it ends up, where it shakes out. You're going to have either 5 or 6 scholarship guys in that room at the end of the day, all vying for playing time.
Then we get to Matthew Fuller, a guy that I think we know the least about at the college level, and I'll kind of lean on your guys' expertise here from seeing him through the recruiting process and getting to Carolina. But based on what we know of him in high school, again, hasn't got a ton of time here at Carolina to play, what is the upside potential and what can he bring to this offense if he's asked to do more this upcoming season?
Yeah, I want to be careful here because he is your classic high upside guy, but is going to have to take that jump in order to meet that potential, right? Like sometimes guys are what you would call high floor, where you're saying, hey, they're going to make an impact. Now are they going to be a top round NFL guy? Maybe not, but they're going to make an impact. A high upside guy, you're saying the potential is here, but there is a little bit more ways to go. That said, I think Matt Fuller has more upside than any running back on the entire roster. Like, I truly believe that. Like, I think if Matt Fuller puts it all together, he can be a 1,000-yard rusher. Like, I legitimately think this guy has everything. When you see him in person, he's massive. Like, tree trunks for legs, well put together. As Beamer likes to say, he can move the pile for you a little bit. Matt Fuller has some things that just can't be taught. And then you watch him at the spring game, and he's got some explosiveness to him. Like, he gets to full speed. He's a little bit faster, a little bit quicker than he looks like he should be. Now, he still has a little bit of ways to go, I think. But there's a world where Fuller puts it all together and ends up being a future successful starter at South Carolina.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, I used the word trust earlier and confidence. With a guy who hasn't played, those are the things you have to see. Now, he's not in his, like, he's been on campus. He went through practice last year, redshirted, all that stuff. So you're not seeing him for the first time. But, again, when it comes to those game situations, blocking, ball security, doing those things for the first time in big situations, you've always got to kind of have an eye towards it as, is he going to do these things as well as he does in practice? I think, to your point, Wes, just from a strict, get ball, carry ball, get yards, like, he's probably one of the better guys on the team, potentially the highest upside guy, in my opinion, on the team, running the football. But as we know, especially for younger backs, that's just one part of the equation. But very productive in high school, big guy, explosive. Like, the glimpses that you see of him, do certainly excite you. I mean, he has a lot of physical ability, Matt Fuller does.
I also have to mention, because he is on scholarship now, Bradley Dunn, he is also part of the running back room, but he's somebody that, aside from injuries, which we don't hope to happen, obviously, not somebody you expect to see a ton, maybe could get out there for a play or two, and certainly in games that South Carolina has potentially run away with. But again, you reward him for being on the team as long as he has been, and certainly deserves deserves scholarship there. But I don't know if we see him as somebody that's going to be featured heavily in this offense this upcoming year.
Yeah, no, probably not. Local guy, great kid, great family. Obviously busts his tail or he wouldn't be on scholarship, wouldn't be in that position. Came in as a fullback, didn't we?
Yeah, well, that was one of our trivia questions.
Didn't we relearn that the other day?
Yes,
He
we
came in
did.
as a fullback. Yeah, Bradley, great dude, man. But yeah, he scored a touchdown in a blowout, I feel like. But yeah, I mean, you said it. Great dude, great depth guy. Not one you would be projecting to be carrying the ball a lot. And there's nothing wrong with that.
No, nothing at all. Just wanted to throw that out there as well. But let's kind of look at the running back room. Again, fingers crossed that the NCAA can come to their senses and give Rasul Faze on his eligibility. But right now, certainly not holding the breath on that happening as we get closer to the start of the season. We'll come back. We'll wrap up the hour. Big 12 is getting rid of its media poll. Should other conferences follow suit? We'll discuss that next here on the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour, presented by Firehouse Subs here on the game. Welcome back in. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler West, Chris, along with you for a few more minutes here on your Thursday on the game. We're in the midst of Media Day season. Next week, of course, is SEC Media Days out in Atlanta. Big Ten Media Days, ACC Media Days all coming up in the next couple weeks. But this week, the Big 12 kicked things off with their Media Days out in Dallas that happened over the past 2 days. A lot of interesting quotes coming out of there. I heard from Deion Sanders, Mike Gundy, obviously all those coaches out there in the Big 12 Conference. And one thing that kind of garnered some headlines right away is that the Big 12 has eliminated their media poll. So typically at Media Days, if you're in attendance, you'll get the opportunity to vote on what you think the outcome of the conference is going to be. And the Big 12's case 1 through 16, like they were a year ago, on who you think is going to finish first and who you think is going to finish last. Last year, Arizona State was famously picked to finish dead last in the conference. They proceeded to win the conference and obviously play in the college football playoff. And the Big 12, citing not wanting to hurt the overall opinion of teams, has decided to eliminate their media poll so there will not be, I guess, the wrong perception of certain teams going into the season that might be able to end up being better than what we think they are at this point right now.
Sign of things to come, or dumb minor blip on the radar?
I think for a conference like the Big 12, who, and Yormark said, hey, we expect to get multiple teams in the playoff this year. Good luck with that. We'll see if it happens. Perception's everything, right? Like the Big 10 and the SEC, you know you're going to have, obviously, your conference champion in, and 2 to 3, maybe 4 other teams get in because of the strength of what your conference is. Now, yeah, the committee does hold a lot of power and maybe didn't give the SEC the benefit of the doubt when it came to leaving out the Alabamas, the Ole Misses, and the South Carolinas a year ago. But more often than not, you're going to be in the mix for some of those at-large spots. Big 12 doesn't have that. And if they feel like there's a team that, based on a preseason perception, is going to be dinged a little bit when it comes to that final decision from the committee, I could see why they wouldn't want to go down this avenue of saying, hey, we don't want them to say that Utah's terrible and that potentially affects something in December and keep a team out of the playoff. And it's a crazy thought, but I get where they're going with it.
I do too. We also, and I don't know that this is necessarily, I don't know if this has anything to do with the decision, but we also are in a world right now where everything is kind of an argument. And it's like, you could be like, just random example. Like if I was like, man, I'm hearing a lot of great things about Brian Rowe, South Carolina freshman receiver. Somebody might respond to you and be like, oh yeah, well, what about Malik Clark? What, are you a Malik Clark hater? Like, what's this hatred towards Malik Clark? You know,
or if Brian Rowe, it doesn't like win the Heisman, then they'll be like, I thought you said
yeah, like we're
you
just,
hyped him up.
It's very argumentative right now. And I say that to say, if you do a poll like that, somebody has to be last.
Sure.
Like you don't get to just rank. Maybe they should say just rank the top 6 teams. Like just rank the top half. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And the rest are just in a bubble somewhere. But somebody has to be last. And it's just like, you know, even last year, it's very easy now for people to hate on national guys that had Lenoris ranked as one of the last quarterbacks in the SEC going into the season. But if you haven't been a starter, if you're a newcomer, and you're not privy to, like, what's going on here locally, you're going to put Lenoris 5th. You know what I'm saying? No, you're not. And until a guy goes and does it. So I kind of the polls are worthless to an extent. They just give us something to talk about. They maybe give some bulletin board material. This may just be a nothing burger, man. Honestly, like I personally could not care less about the polls. Like if you told me they just weren't doing them, if you just didn't do them and didn't even tell me they weren't doing them, I don't even know that I would notice. Like that's how little I care about the polls.
It's a talking point for a couple days. Again, coming out of Media Days next week, the polls will release on Friday or whatever, and we may talk about it then or that following Monday. Hey, here's where people project Carolina to be or whatever it may be. But it's not something that I think outside of, you know, the bulletin board material of, hey, they picked us last and we're, you know, now competing for the conference championship. It's kind of the only time those kind of things really last on into the season, it feels like.
Where do y'all think South Carolina will be picked next week? Middle of the pack?
So typically Carolina ends up kind of in line in the Beamer era, at least, of where they were the prior season. Because you kind of see a trend here of like, hey, they finished, and for years it was the West and the East, so you kind of split it between two numbers, really. But like, okay, you finished at the bottom of the East one year. All right, you're going to be picked to finish at the bottom of the East the next year. Coming off the 22 season, they were picked to finish about 6th or 7th in the league, which is around where they finished in the league the year prior. So I think you kind of look at that 5th, 6th-ish area of the SEC like they were a year ago, and probably going to be somewhere around there, I would imagine.
As I always say, very reactive media
Yes.
when it comes to this stuff. Like, people react to what they've just seen, not necessarily great at projecting forward. But then when you do project forward, people go, well, Arch Manning hasn't done anything yet. Why are you already projecting that guy
Sure.
to be great? So,
Yeah, I mean, South Carolina was, 13th preseason last year?
Yes.
And that is, I mean, in the media poll, you're right, Tyler. I mean, it is kind of, I don't want to say it's lazy. It's just you don't have a ton of data. Like, that's what South Carolina did not get much hype going into 2024 because they had gone 5-7 and lost their two best players on paper. In Spencer Rattler and Xavier Leggett. And so this year, what happened? Well, South Carolina won 9 games. They finished hot, even though they didn't win the bowl game, but they finished hot in the regular season. They beat some really, really good teams, ranked teams down the stretch. They're getting back their quarterback, who's getting well-deserved buzz. They're getting back Dylan Stewart. So the appearance now is, they're getting back their two best players, right? They should be just as good or better, and it's not always that simple.
Yeah. We'll see.
even the line between winning and losing, though, like, I remember last year, you're thinking, well, this team could be better than we thought. Then the ODU game happens. You're going, were we wrong to think that?
Yeah.
And then it ends up being right to think that. So
Very true. We'll see what happens. That'll come out the end of next week, and we'll talk about it then. That'll do it for the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Halftime show. Myself and Bill Guns are up next here on The Game.
All right, guys, time for lunch. As always, this show brought to you by our friends over at Firehouse Subs. You want to try something new on the menu? How about the classic barbecue triple stack, piled high with slow smoked brisket, honey ham, and smoked turkey, topped with melted cheddar, sweet and tangy sauce, smoky barbecue sauce, and mayo, of course, as always, all served hot on a toasted sub